Perfectly Imperfect Yogis. Welcome to our little session on headstand. So headstands and inversion, head below the heart, below the hips. I love inversions. I love being upside down. It brings like this childlike sense of joy and adventure. It calms any anxiety that I've got going on, because really you can only focus on one thing when you're upside down, which is being upside down and finding the breath and a little bit of space in that time and place. So headstand, there are a couple of really important things here. First of all, honor where you are in your practice. So if it's just working progressively through some of these activities to get you into headstand, just work through them. Your body will know when it's time for you to lift up and go. If you would like to use the wall, please feel free to find your space and time, your proprioception with the wall, so that you know what that alignment might feel like. But honor your practice, that's the most important thing. There are loads of warm-up exercises that we can go and do as we move through to headstand. So I invite you to do a couple of rounds of sun salutations, maybe do some core work, and we'll actually do an abdominal core video so you can work some of those exercises into your flow before coming into headstand. Downward dog is a preparatory pose, even dolphin pose, so working through some of these things and finding your space where you can have that sensation of the hips coming up over the head before you step into headstand. So a couple of things. The triangle base that the forearms create is really, really important, and we measure this out. So you can bring the elbows down to the floor, down to the earth, interlace the fingers or the hands, and press the fingertips into the knuckles. And then you're pulling, it's almost like you're pulling that skin back towards the knuckles. And this is what creates this beautiful stable base from which we will construct our headstand. Create some space between the thumbs here. So you can see my thumbs are creating like a little football goalpost scenario here. This is so that we can fit the head into that space. So if you have the hands, palms closed, and you're creating that double fist here, then you ain't going to be able to get the head nowhere inside there. So it is actually quite important. Interlace the fingers, press the fingertips into the outside of the hands, pull that skin back towards the knuckles, so you're creating tension. What that does is actually fires up the arms, biceps, triceps, forearm. As you pull back, you start to fire up the arms and create that strength. You can actually see my biceps activate as I press in and pull the fingertips back. So setting ourselves up, super important. I'm just going to turn side on, because the next thing of importance is actually working the hips up over the head. So once we've got this triangle structure, that solid foundation from which to work, so we've pressed our fingertips into the front of the hand, pulled the knuckles back, we've set ourselves up into this triangle. We've got our little football thumbs happening, our little goal posts down here. And then we place the crown of the head into this little structure that we've got going on. The next thing is to tuck the toes and lift the hips. So walking the toes in towards the forehead and walking them back, and finding out how close you can get the hips up over the head. Eventually, like, the toes will just want to lift off the ground, so you can find that space. So maybe this is your first place that you come to, is finding that little place where maybe you can lift one toe and then lift the other, and just see that what it's creating for you in the core, that core engagement becomes really important, to find that strength in that core, to have the strength in the arms and the shoulders. What we don't want to do is press into the crown chakra, and that's represented by 1,000-petal lotus. And I had a teacher say to me once, "Don't squash the flower." And I was like, I went into a mad panic. What is she talking about? Crown chakra. thousand petal lotus. Don't squash the flower. Eventually, it is just going to be the forearms, and you're not going to press the crown of the head. As you develop that strength, you'll lift up and out, that the crown of the head won't rest entirely on the floor. And what we don't want to do is put any stress onto our cervical spine, onto our neck. And that's why the structure with the forearms and the hands is so imperative in our headstand. So coming back into our headstand, we're going to interlace the fingers, press the fingertips in, pull the skin back towards the knuckles, open up our little goalpost thumbs, find our best structure here, which is elbows underneath the shoulders, creating that solid foundation. We're going to press the head towards the earth. We're going to tuck the toes and lift the hips. We're going to walk the feet forward, and then we're going to test where we are, maybe lifting one leg, and then slowly, gently lifting the other. And once you're up in your headstand, pressing the forearms into the earth, engaging the back body, the core, lifting up, lengthening through the quadriceps, lifting the knees, pointing the toes towards the sky, lifting up and out of the shoulders. So once you're here in headstand, you can test out your strength and balance, and finding that little counterbalance as you engage the core, and different things become available to you here. Opening the leg side, touching the toes, bringing those legs all the way back up. It's all fun and games. And then eventually lowering the feet back down to the earth, knees down. And the counter pose for our headstand is child's pose. So just resting the forehead onto the earth. The hands can be by the side of the head. You might rest the forehead on the hands. You might have the hands back in child's pose. Any of those postures are fine. I sometimes also like to sit in hero's pose. So hands onto the knees, and I just sit here, close down the eyes, and I feel what's going on for me in that space, just for 2 or 3 rounds of breath. And then I find my child's pose as that little extra place of respite. So again, if we're going to go back over our headstand, core work, super important. Building strength and opening up into our shoulders. Finding our hips up over our shoulders so that we have that understanding of where that balance might be. As you come into headstand, what's really important is that you don't rush at it. If you go like a bull at a gate into it and you get so excited because it's like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be upside down, adrenaline thing starts happening. What happens is that momentum or that rush is what will actually create that topple that takes you over. And we really want to avoid that. And so that's what's really important about engaging the core. Going slowly into the space, being considered with your movements, and finding yourself moving to headstand gracefully. So that's quite a descriptive word, a good word to describe how we're going to enter that headstand. So putting all of those things together brings you to a space of calm, and where you can connect in with the breath, and you can hold your headstand from anywhere to 3 to 23 breaths, totally up to you, wherever you find yourself at that level of comfortability. And when you're ready to come out, just bringing the toes back down to the floor and coming back down into either your hero's pose or child's pose. So let's run through some of those things again. Interlacing of the fingers, pressing the fingertips into the skin, pulling that skin back towards the knuckles, opening the hands so that you've got the goalposts with the thumbs, elbows down into the earth, measure out that distance, and it can be the distance of the forearm, so another good way to measure there. And you should find that structure of the shoulders over the elbows, creating that solid triangle foundation here. Crown of the head goes down, tuck the toes, lift the hips, walk the toes, and eventually the feet will come up off the mat, and you will find yourself in headstand. And then when you're ready, you can come all the way back down and find either your hero's pose or resting in child's pose. So I genuinely hope that you find joy in the journey towards your headstand, and indeed other inversions that we learn along the way here. And remember, warming up, cooling down, always important parts of our practice, and most importantly is honouring where we are in this space and time. Some days are going to be diamonds, and some days are going to be total bull dust, and that's perfectly fine. One little bit of advice that I could give, if you're not there in 3 goes, just give it a break for today. Maybe it's not your day for it, so don't push so hard and have that self-talk that might be negative or without compassion. So always honour your practice, honour where you are. Self-compassion, ahimsa, so that non-violence towards the self, not negative self-talk, always in the positive. Give yourself a break if you need it. Breathe and connect. Take Shavasana. It's all good. Namaste.